Hi everybody. So in today's video, we're going to be looking at sections of a graph that we usually talk about and we are kind of focused on when we analyze a function. So the first thing we're going to look at is the domain of a function. The domain is telling you the farthest to the left and the farthest to the right that the graph goes. So you have to imagine if you're putting walls around the whole thing, what is the farthest it would go to the left and what is the farthest it would go to the right? In this case, the farthest that this graph goes to the left would be right here, and the farthest that this graph goes to the right would be right here. In order to describe that, I would say that this graph goes from -7 to +9. So I would put -7 as my first number and +9 as my second number. Since there are closed circles at both of those points, I would use brackets to describe both of those endpoints. If there was an open circle, I might use a parentheses to describe that value instead. Now, the range of a function is describing the lowest that the graph goes and the highest that the graph goes. So a range is going to be like the floor and the ceiling. The lowest that this graph goes would be right here, and the highest that this graph goes would be right here. So those values that would describe the lowest and the highest that the graph goes would be -6 and +4. So I would say -6 and +4, and I'm going to use brackets to describe that because there's closed circles at both the bottom and the top. It's a nice curve, so there's no open circles. The next problem says circle all of the parts of the graph where the function is decreasing. Now, decreasing in math means going downhill. So I'm looking for parts of the graph that are going downhill, and I'm going to circle them. The first part of the graph that's going downhill would be here. Then it continues to go downhill until it gets to the bottom of the hill. Then it switches to uphill, so I'm not going to circle the next part. Next, the graph goes downhill right here. And so there are really three sections where the graph is going downhill. The last problem here says state the intervals where the function is decreasing. Now, intervals means tell me the sections of the graph by naming the values where it's decreasing. The first interval starts from -7, and because these two green sections are connected, I'm going to go all the way to the -3. I don't need to separate them and make two separate portions because they do connect in the middle. So I'm going to have -7 to -3 is my first portion of the graph, my first interval that is decreasing. My second interval of the graph that's decreasing would go from +7 to +9. And so I would say +7, 9, and I would put a bracket and I would put a bracket. And that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you soon for some practice.